So this is a transverse section of a leaf. If you have a leaf, which I will draw in blue, there we go, and you cut it across, leaves are really, really thin. The reason for that is for good gas exchange you need a short diffusion pathway. For these cells here, these palisade cells, to be able to get enough carbon dioxide so that it can do photosynthesis. Oh, have we run out of space? Is it saying it's run out of space? Okay. We'll carry on. So palisade cells have chloroplasts, lots of chloroplasts in them, and they carry out photosynthesis. In order to get the carbon dioxide for photosynthesis, they need a short diffusion pathway. So there's only a couple of cells between these palisade cells and the outside environment that's full of carbon dioxide. And there's also some oxygen in there as well. So what will happen is the carbon dioxide will diffuse down its concentration gradient and into these cells. They will then use that in photosynthesis and produce oxygen. Oxygen concentration will then be high within the leaf, and so oxygen will diffuse down its concentration gradient and out. Unless, of course, the leaf is also respiring, in which case what tends to happen is there's just an exchange between the mitochondria. So the mitochondria gives out carbon dioxide, takes up the oxygen, and then you have the chloroplast, which takes up the carbon dioxide and gives out oxygen. So under normal circumstances you've got lots of gas exchange going on within the cell. If the photosynthesis rate goes above the respiration rate, then you're going to need carbon dioxide in, and it diffuses down its concentration gradient. So that's during the day at high light intensity. At night, when you've not really got any photosynthesis going on, you've mainly got respiration, then you'll have lots of carbon dioxide being produced, and that will diffuse out, so your carbon dioxide will come out, and your oxygen will have to come in, down its concentration gradient, and supply respiration, so you can do aerobic respiration. So the leaf is very, very thin. That shortens the diffusion pathway. You've got lots and lots of leaves, and you've got lots of stomata, and that allows lots and lots of gas exchange. So the lots of stomata allows lots of gas exchange. However, there is a problem with that. And that is, the consequence of this gas exchange is that you need these stomata to be open. So this is one stoma, lots of stomata. So I'll have another one over here. Means that you will also lose water. So effectively what happens is, if you have water inside these cells, and not so much water outside, then you have a water potential gradient. And water will leave the leaf through the open stoma, down a water potential gradient into the environment. If that's happening on a very hot day, then quickly your plant will wilt. So what it has to do is it has to close these guard cells, and that allows the water loss to be limited. So guard cells are specialised cells, and that's because on one side they have a very thick wall, and on the other a very thin wall. So what will happen is, water will enter these guard cells by a process that you don't really need to know about, but just appreciate that water enters, that makes the cell turgid, that causes the cell wall, because it's really thin on one side, to bulge. As it bulges, it pulls this thicker side away, and as it pulls away, and there's another guard cell on the other side, you end up with this open pore, which is your stoma. So when the water levels are low, then what happens is these guard cells lose water, so water comes out, and that causes them to not be turgid anymore, and when they're not turgid, then the walls come back together and you close the stoma, and so that way you stop any more water loss, but you also stop gas exchange. So at some point you will limit the gas exchange that can occur, but in plants during the daytime that's not too much of an issue, because they're respiring as well as photosynthesizing, so you get the exchange between the chloroplast and the mitochondrion. So gas exchange in plant, you have a short diffusion pathway, lots of stomata, for lots of gas exchange openings. There's only a few cells thick in the cross section, so you have the spongy mesophyll cells, you have the palisade mesophyll cells, And that's basically it in terms of the layers of cells. And therefore the diffusion is very fast. You maintain a steep diffusion gradient because the cells are constantly using up either carbon dioxide or oxygen as required, and so that helps to maintain a concentration gradient between outside of the plant leaf and inside the plant leaf. So if there's lots of oxygen being used up, more oxygen will diffuse in down the concentration gradient. If there's lots of carbon dioxide being used up, then carbon dioxide will diffuse in down its concentration gradient. And that's gas exchange in leaves.